Hi all, it's the middle of September and we are picking pears. We've picked, probably 4 or 5 bushels so far. I don't know if I'll pick any more, but I'm going to try to do something I have never done before. I want to make pear cider or perry, depending on where you are, is depending on what you call it. I want to keep the ABV down to between 4 and 6% because I want to try to carbonate it also, something I have never done either. I've always used still wines. I've never tried to carbonate other than using like a soda stream or carbonated water or something that has been pre-carbonated. I never tried to naturally carbonate a beverage. So I'm going to try to do that. And in doing so, I'm going to take you on the journey with me. So the first thing we have to do, we have to cut and quarter these, and then we'll have to macerate them. I'll probably use a bucket and a 2x4. I've used that in the past for apples. I don't have a grinder. That's probably going to be in the future. If this works, we haven't started picking the apples yet. We'll probably be picking them in the next few weeks or so. Okay, this is about 2.5 gallons of pears. I'm just going to cut them in half and quarter them, throw them in the bucket. Cut off any bad spots. Destem them. You don't have to destem them if you're just going to use the juice for perry. I'm going to use it for pear butter, so I'm going to stem them while I have them. These have been sitting for about a week. They're softer than what they were when I picked them off the tree, but they're still quite hard. I've got about 3/4 of this bucket filled. I don't like to fill it up too high because when I'm mashing them down, I don't want them to come out. I've got my new press back here. This is just a tabletop press. Comes in 3 parts. I've got a bag in here right now, and once I get it filled up here, I'll fold these in. I'll put these in the collector. Collector's just got a little bitty spout. I will probably in the future replace this with a longer piece. Today is just a experiment to see how much juice I'm going to get out of the pears. But you put the pears in here after they're macerated. You put this in the collector. You put this in, and then you just screw it down here. So once you have everything screwed down, the juice comes up this end. Anyway, I'll be back once I start mashing this up. I'm just using a 2x4. Yes, it's been washed. Starting to release the juice a little bit. It's pretty well macerated at this point. Doesn't have to be completely, little chunks. Most of them are chunked up. So on to the press. Okay, for that bag, that's That's how much juice we got. Right at 2 cups. It took roughly about 6 gallons of pears, raw pears, and I diced them, mashed them, and then I pressed them, which gave me about a gallon of juice. I'm going to check the specific gravity and the original gravity of it. What I'm starting with is juice. I have a hydrometer funnel. I am using Red Star, just the Premier Blanc. It's what I have on hand. I normally have this on hand. I was going to use the Fleshman's active yeast, but I can't find any. So I have my airlock. It's a 3-piece airlock. I don't have any solution in here yet. I'm not to that point. And I'm not putting any sugar in it at all. I don't want it to go to a wine. I want it to remain a cider. If it's a dry or too dry whenever I get it, I will back sweeten it a little bit. But I also want to try to carbonate it, so I'm going to have to use priming sugar. So we are going to get started. So I'm going to check the specific gravity of this. That goes in the cleaning solution. And we are going to test. Give it a spin to get all the air bubbles off of it. And it is a 1.050, which is where I figured it would be, roughly. And it is. Amazing. And we will pour everything into the carboy. Okay. See if I can do this without spilling it everywhere. It does smell like pears. Now, there are people that are going to say, oh, just put the yeast in there. I like to hydrate my yeast before I put it in. It doesn't have to be hydrated for a very long time. But I do like to, just put a little water in the bottom. And I have a half a packet. So I will pour the half a packet into the water to start hydrating it. And you're just going to stir it up a little bit to start getting it hydrated. Some people just pour it in. It's going to sit for a long time, for a couple weeks, so it probably doesn't make much of a difference, but I've always done it. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes or so, so I am going to pour this into my carboy. Carefully. I'm going to shake it up a little bit just to get it oxygenated, get the must integrated into it, and get a little oxygen so the yeast can start working a little better. Now, the water lock is in between the two lines where it's supposed to be. There's a line here and a line here. So put the water somewhere in between there. I don't normally go to the max, and you don't want it below the minimum. But I will put it in. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes or an hour or so to see if we have any action and it's bubbling. Okay, be back in a bit. It's the next day. Today is September 13th. I didn't check it last night. Not a big deal. Always going to check to make sure it was off gassing, that it had started to ferment. It is. It's bubbling. It's not a real hard bubble at this point, but it's still bubbling, so I know it's fermenting. I'm going to shake it up once a day for the next couple days, and then I'll let it sit for a couple weeks, and then I'll probably test it and rack it one more time and then leave it and bottle it, because I'm going to try to carbonate it. I want it a little drier than what I like, so I'll use priming sugar. And being this is the first time that I've tried to carbonate, I've done a little checking, I've done some math. Uh, a gallon comes up to about 750 milliliter bottles, but I will probably be using individual bottles, 16-ounce bottles, so probably between 7 and 8. And I will stir in the sugar, the priming sugar, before. It'll be about 28 grams for this gallon to carbonate. I'm not trying to oxygenate it. I'm just trying to get the yeast up to the top just to make sure. A little oxygenation is going to happen, but it's low enough in alcohol, or should be low enough in alcohol, that it's not going to bother it. It shouldn't turn to vinegar. Anyway, this is the pear cider. It was done on the 12th, September 12th. Today is the 13th. The original gravity was 1.050. There was no sugar added, and I used a half a packet of Red Star yeast, the Premier Blanc. You can use whatever you want to use. Anyway, I will check this again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, which is, I'll probably stop shaking it around the 15th or 16th. Just depends on how I feel. It's in a nice, cool, dark place, so it's going to do its thing. Thanks for watching.